Hello and welcome to another episode of Pittsburgh Postgame. I'm Alan Saunders, and the Pittsburgh Pirates 4-2 winners over the Detroit Tigers on a Thursday matinee getaway day as the Pirates, they'll leave Detroit with victory at hand here. 4-2 winners on a Thursday afternoon. I may be joined by Cody Nespor, my colleague from West Virginia Sports Now, at some point during the program. He was all set to join us, and then the Mountaineers signed head coach Neil Brown to a contract extension just moments ago. So he's got some slightly more pressing things to do with his time than talk about the Buccos, but I'm free, and so we will talk about the Pirates, their 4-2 win over the Tigers at Comerica Park in Detroit today. And a lot of news before the game, and part of that, Todd Frazier goes up, his first game with the Pirates. And as I put on Twitter, lots and lots of fun and strange things about the Pirates are now undefeated when they have two Fraziers in the lineup, their first time ever. But they've got a good game from Adam at the top of the order, 3 for 5. Todd, not so much, going 0 for 4 in his first game in the majors this season. Mitch Keller was the starting pitcher, went 5 innings, allowed 2 runs, a solo home run. The one that really hurt there, gave up the lead late, but did get through 5 relatively clean, had 5 strikeouts, and just the 2 runs, no walks either for Keller. Not a dominant performance by any stretch of the imagination, but a solid one from the Pirates' young starter, and an important one for him as well, because part of that news before the game, Chad Kuhl going on the injured list. So the Pirates' rotation certainly will be facing a shakeup, and just as certainly without some talent that they've had. So Keller pitching up to his talent level will be a big deal for him going forward. Kuhl on the 10-day injured list, retroactive to the 19th with right shoulder discomfort. Obviously, that's his throwing shoulder. Jeff Hartlieb up to the major league roster for the first time this season to fill a pitching spot. And then Dustin Fowler designated for assignment as the Pirates in back-to-back days abandoned their plans for center field with Alford and Fowler, both DFA'd. Todd Frazier up as it was announced that Ke'Bryan Hayes has re-aggravated his wrist injury and will now miss even more time. So that move there clearly to shore up the third base position. And it looks like Brian Reynolds will get a shot at least to prove that he can be an everyday center fielder without Alford and Fowler. He made the start there today and looked certainly okay. He did miss one ball that he was diving on coming forward at center, but he had a nice night at the plate, nice afternoon at the plate, I should say. 2 walks and 1 for 2 with an RBI and 2 runs. So lots to talk about here for a midday game. If you want to join the conversation, especially since I'm flying solo here without Cody as he's got news to tend to, leave a comment here on the YouTube platform and I'll get to it, or in the live chat there. And we will certainly talk about whatever you want, because it's your show as much as it is mine here at Pittsburgh Sports Live. We do Pittsburgh postgame at least a few times a week after most Pittsburgh games. I think we're actually going to have another one tonight after the Pens. So Matt Geica will be having that one, Bucks and Pucks Day here at PSL. So where do we want to start? I think to me the big news of the morning was quite a downer, in that Hayes is going to miss significant more time with that wrist injury. He re-aggravated it while taking swings in a cage. He had been expected to play in a taxi squad game, an alternate site game, whatever you want to call it, this week, but those were canceled because of the weather. And so he was taking some swings in a batting cage against full velocity pitching, re-aggravated the injury, which the Pirates are still calling a wrist injury. I think that's a solid sign. The hamate bone, obviously, which is on a part of the hand, would be the big issue. Any kind of soft tissue injury around the wrist, not such a big deal. Hayes may miss a couple weeks or maybe even a month or two, but it would not be the kind of injury that would have long-lasting effects like a hamate bone does. So that sort of precipitated the roster moves, which brings Todd Frazier back to the majors. And I think that was a move that they didn't need to bring Frazier up with the team at the very beginning when they started the season, but it made sense to finally go to him now that they have some injuries and they have some holes. They do not have a ton of depth from hitting prospects with the group that we generally consider to be the indie crew, although some of them are in this alternate site world until the minor league season starts. But, it's not like there's a ton of top-level infield prospects there ready to go, ready to step in at third base for Ke'Bryan Hayes. So why not Frazier, who, if he can put together some solid numbers, might prove to be a useful bench bat down the stretch, or for a contender if he performs really well. And, I don't think this Pirates team is going anywhere as far as record goes, but they are better than I think most people thought. This has not been a team that's on 100 loss pace or anything like that. They, leave this 3-game series with the Detroit Tigers. Now they've done pretty well against the American League Central, and it's not, the Tigers are not the Oakland A's, which I guess are the best team in baseball right now. But, for the Pirates to be sitting here on April 22nd, 9-10, they've won back-to-back series, back-to-back series, and they haven't lost a series in quite some time because they took 2 or 3 from the Cubs, split with the Padres in a 4-game series. They took 2 or 3 from Milwaukee, 2 or 3 from the Tigers. That's what good teams do. They win series, and especially to win back-to-back series on the road. Gosh, I don't know if they did that all last year. I'd have to go back and look. I really don't think they did. So a lot of encouraging signs from these Pirates, despite the fact that they're not really very healthy, and we're not getting a good look at some of the players that we hope to, like Ke'Bryan Hayes. But I think in general, some really strong performances and some good things to talk about here. Let's start with Bryan Reynolds, because I've been pretty skeptical that he can be an everyday center fielder, and it's just, he doesn't have quite the speed that you look for at that position. He did misplay that one ball today, went for a dive, and he came up about 2 feet short and rolled past him for an extra base hit. But he did have another nice play going to cover for Phillip Evans, who was in the left. Evans saved a home run but couldn't hang on to the ball. Reynolds was right there and kept it to a double, saved a run. And so, look, we'll see. We'll give him obviously a sample size to prove himself, and it looks like the Pirates are going to do that. But I think, to me, the big thing is, will he hit? I mean, If Bryan Reynolds hits like the player that he was in 2019, then accepting some below average defense in center field might be an okay trade-off. In 2019, he hit 314, with a 130 weighted runs created plus. That's a really good hitter. And if he, and if he has some poor defense in center field, he can still be really productive, really positive player for the team, even if he does that. Now, if he's last year's hitter where he hit 189 and a 72 weighted runs created plus, that's not good enough to even be a bench player. So, I mean, I think, to me, the really big thing is, can he hit? And then we'll see if the defense allows him to stick in center field. To be honest, I think it's the best case scenario for the Pirates if Reynolds becomes an approachably consistent center fielder, because he really does not appear to have the kind of power potential that you're really looking for from a left fielder. The Pirates don't hit a lot of home runs to begin with, and using a premium power spot on a guy that just doesn't have that power is just taking an opportunity away from them to use what is the number one way to create offense in Major League Baseball right now. And so if they can get Reynolds to play a passing center field and they can get him hitting back, look, I don't think he's going to hit 314 with a 387 batting average on balls in play like he did in 2019. I don't think that's reasonable. But if he can be an above average major league hitter and play average or slightly below average defense in center field, I think they'd take that right now from Bryan Reynolds. And, a fairly strong performance here today. I mean, I think he was one of the big reasons for this victory. He starts the game with a single and scores in the first inning. And then, I just think he's a player that they can really feel like they can rely on at the top of that batting order, when maybe there aren't very many guys that have his combination of Well, he's playing well right now, and pedigree. Phillip Evans is hitting the ball really well right now, but nobody really expected that. And, a guy like Gregory Polanco obviously has a ton of pedigree and is not hitting the ball very well right now. And so, Eric Gonzalez, not a guy who we should be expecting to have, an OPS around 800, but he does. And Colin Moran, obviously playing well above his career numbers. And so the fact that they have guys like Reynolds and Adam Frazier that are what they are, at least they appear to be the kind of players that they are, I think that's really important for a team to have that kind of consistency at the top of the lineup and to be able to put those guys in, Frazier at the leadoff spot and Reynolds in the 3-hole every day. They're everyday players. If Reynolds can stick at center field and Frazier at second base, I think that's a really good thing for this lineup that's obviously still trying things, that they're trying to figure out if they have future players at different spots. They're going to experiment. They experimented with Alford. They experimented with Fowler. Now the experiment is Reynolds in center and Phillip Evans in left field. Evans not hitting today, 0 for 4 with a strikeout, left 4 guys on base. Not ideal for your number 2 hitter, but I thought he looked okay in left field. The transition to being a part-time corner outfielder hasn't been super smooth so far, but he's another guy that needs some time to see if what he did out there, what he did at the plate so far this season and before his injury in 2020 can stick around. If it can, then, maybe he can be a corner outfielder for this team. We shall see. So I really like the experimentation, the willing to experiment that the Pirates are showing there, throwing Evans in left, throwing Reynolds in center, see if that is something that's going to work long-term, like it appears that Frazier at second is going to work, like it appears that Moran at first is going to work. So I think some really positive signs from the Pirates offense. And, let's couch that by saying I thought that this offense could be okay. This offense did not look like a black hole to me at the beginning of the season. I thought it would be about what it has been, maybe not as good in all the places, but certainly, I didn't think this was a team that wasn't going to be able to hit. I thought the question marks were with the pitching staff, and maybe that's why we'll talk about that group next, because I think that is the one where there's a lot less hope. Let's get to the comments quickly, though. Owen, who is a journalism student out of Robert Morris, so I've gotten to know a little bit, wants to know what future players do they have in the current roster that are a lock going forward? That's a really good question. Without Brian Hayes on the current roster, Mitch Keller maybe would be the only one that I would call a lock going forward. And when I say a lock going forward, I'm thinking, sure to be a part of the next team that the Pirates think is going to be good. And, I think Hayes and Keller are clearly those guys. I think players like Frazier and Moran are more likely to be traded between now and then than they are to be part of a next good Pirates team going forward. Stallings, same thing. Guys like Reynolds and Newman, it really depends on what they do. If Reynolds can hit like he did crazily in 2019, or if he can maybe do 3/4 of that while also adding the ability to be a passable center fielder, then he'll probably stick around. But I don't think that's a sure thing. I think he's got a better shot than most. Evans has to prove that this is not a fluke. He does not have a ton of track record at the major league level. And so anytime you have a guy like that, the right thing to do is to be skeptical when the results turn around in a big way. Evans played 24 games with the Mets in 2017 and hit okay. He played 25 games with the Mets in 2018 and didn't hit at all. So he's played 27 games with the Pirates in 2020, 28 games with the Pirates in 2021, and he's looked like Barry Bonds wearing 24 out there. So we'll see which the real Phillip Evans is. I mean, that will come to light. It's just going to take time. But then I think as you get farther and farther away from what guys have done in the past, that projection starts to be a lot more skeptical. Is it really realistic to see a guy like, let's talk about what they tried in center field, Alford or Fowler, become an everyday starter? I don't know. I don't really think it was, but maybe. But this is not a team full of high-powered prospects. That's not what this team is. It's a bunch of guys that they're honestly hoping play well so that they can trade them, and a bunch of guys that they're hoping can play well so that they can work their way into that conversation as a part of the future, because they're currently not. In the pitching staff, I think it's even bleaker. I mean, we saw yesterday Kajor make his Pirates debut, and I thought he was okay, but it's still a big projection to call him a part of a future major league rotation. And really, he's the only guy other than Mitch Keller who I could put in that box. And that's why what Mitch Keller does this season is so important for the Pirates, because they do not have a ton of pitching coming. It's one of the reasons why I think they're really likely to draft either Jack Leiter or Kumar Rocker, even though I think the shortstops in the draft you can make a case to take, but the Pirates just need pitching. They do not have enough arms that project to be 1 and 2 starters, guys that are going to be at the front end of rotations. I'm not sure you could call Mitch Keller that right now. I don't think he's proven that. I mean, he has the ability to do that, but we haven't seen him pitch that way in the majors. And so, it was not a dominant performance from Keller. 5 strikeouts in 5 innings, 2 runs, no walks. I'll take that most nights, especially on a cold day in Detroit, but that's not still what he's capable of. And he showed some hints at the end of last season. He went on a really nice run with his last couple starts, but then he struggled again off the bat this year. They need him to develop into not just a pitcher that has potential, but a pitcher that gets consistent results. And if he does that, then he will certainly be a part of their long-term plans, because he's got a better shot than anyone else they have that's anywhere near the majors into turning into a really high-level pitcher. They don't have, JT Brubaker has some nice stuff, but I just think potential total upside, he's not in the same category as a Keller. So I would say not some kind of breakthrough for Keller by any means, but an encouraging step forward today and something that's really good to see from him. It's kind of been every other start now for the last couple. It would be really, really good if he can take this, go 5 days from now and put up another one. I think that's really the next thing for him, is to develop that consistency. And, I think part of it is mental. It is a grind and learning how to become a pro, and not that you aren't a pro when you're in the minor leagues, but it's at a different level when you're in the majors. And I think Keller is working through that right now, learning how to get the best out of his stuff too. I think still sometimes you see, for a guy with an impressive breaking ball arsenal at times and a really nice fastball, there's a lot of the plate there sometimes. That's what happened with that solo home run where he gave up the lead today. I just think he's still learning a lot of that. And so they have a whole season here, and maybe a whole nother one, where they can just give him as much rope and as much leeway he needs to figure it out. And that can only be a good thing for his development. And it will be a good thing for the Pirates if he's able to take advantage of that opportunity. Underwater Levels, always glad to see you in the chat. Polanco still sucks. Hard to believe he's getting $11 million this year. Look, $11 million doesn't get you a whole lot when you're talking about Major League Baseball players and market value. But yeah, Polanco has certainly been well below the level that you would expect even for that. Another, so-so day, 1 for 4. I thought he looked okay in right field, made a couple nice defensive plays, but still batting 170 with an OPS of 592. That's not going to get it done for, let alone a corner outfielder with questionable defense, but just about anybody on the roster. When your defense first catcher, Kevin Stallings, is hitting 208, it's a significant red flag. And I don't know what the Pirates, they don't have any better options for corner outfield. They're already sort of scrambling to fill one spot with Phillip Evans as it is. And so Polanco's going to keep going out there every day, whether it makes sense for that to happen or not. Again, this is not a team that is developing its lineup every day with the intention of giving itself the very best chance of winning that game every day. They're going out there to try things, to see where they might have players. And if there comes a point where, maybe a Jared Oliva or someone like that earns a spot ahead of Polanco, I think they'll give it to him. But, right now, the best outcome for the Pirates and Gregory Polanco is for Polanco to hit his way off this team. And the only way he's going to do that if he stays in the lineup every day. And it's going to take them a while to give up on that because, like you said, he's making $11 million. It's easy come, easy go for a guy like Fowler, a guy like Alford. They're not making anything. It doesn't hurt the Pirates to send them on their way. They'll just replace them with somebody else making roughly the minimum and be gone. To eat Polanco's salary would be significant, and so he's going to get as many chances as it takes for him to prove that he can hit at this level or not, one way or the other. So keep coming with the comments, and we'll get to them. Owen says Kumar Rocker. I think lighter, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm not a fan of the way either of those players is used by Vanderbilt. I feel like they're overused. I mean, when you come from the professional world and you're so used to pitch counts and these teams being just uber careful with young men's arms, and then you go to college baseball and you see guys routinely throwing 100, 115 pitches. And I know they get 6 days between starts instead of 5, but it's rough. And I know Rocker's pitched a ton of high leverage appearances in his time there. I think lighter, maybe a little bit less on his arm. And so maybe that's the way to go. We'll see. We'll see. We had Cody Nespor, who was off to talk, write about Neil Brown's contract extension. He's back. So we're going to go to Cody now. And thanks for leaving me hanging. It's fine. We're okay. We did fine. Just me and the guests here while you flit about and do your job. How's things with Neil Brown? Give us the details here since we've got you.
Right. So Neil Brown, I guess technically a 2-year contract extension. It adds 2 years onto his original deal. Gets about $1 million raise. Keeps him in Morgantown through 2026. I thought this was probably pretty obvious coming after he was in a bunch of rumors over the offseason. You could kind of feel he was posturing for maybe a little bit of a raise or an extension.
Well, he got it. And, good times in Morgantown. I think he's building things nicely there, but haven't really seen the results yet. But let's talk Pirates. That's what we're here to do. An impressive performance from some members of the offense. A very nice start from Mitch Keller. What's your big takeaway from this one here, Cody?
I would say Mitch Keller. It's always been the case with him that he's best when he's in the zone, and he's not walking guys and he's not getting behind, and that was really the case today. And he had the I think 2 starts ago he had a very similar start that kind of got away from him late, and this one again, he gave up the home run late, and they pulled him after just 5, but it was a good start, and I think hopefully he starts to repeat starts like this without stinkers in between as often.
Yeah, you roughly summarized about 5 minutes of me talking in one sentence, so that's a nice job. And what do you make of this Pirates offense? It doesn't seem like as a whole they're all that bad, but some of the performances continue to seem unlikely. Colin Moran with a dink hit, but another RBI. Yeah. Eric Gonzalez with 2 RBIs. What's up with these guys? Is any of this sustainable?
I think it's just an offense full of role players. None of them are stars or seem like they are going to become stars. And I think, when you put an offense together with all role players, you have stretches like this where they hit well and they score runs. But then you have stretches like at the beginning of the season when nobody was hitting except Jacob Stallings. And so for Moran, I think, he's always been a good hitter since he's been in Pittsburgh. He added the power last year. He has a little bit this year. I think it's sustainable for him. Gonzalez, again, just a guy that really probably needed at bats, and he's finally got them. I think, he'll sustain it. But as a whole offense, I don't think they'll be good the whole season. I think they'll have peaks and valleys because nobody in that lineup is really a stud or there's no focal point of the offense right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I do think they're pretty consistent with a couple guys. I think Adam Frazier has really been a very consistent part of that lineup. And it seems like Brian Reynolds is getting there as well. But certainly consistency is not star power, and they don't have any of that. Reynolds as a everyday player, center fielder, left fielder, do you buy this? And is 2020 becoming an afterthought to you for him?
I would say I think Reynolds is if the Pirates are going to be good in the next 3 years, I think he's going to be right in the middle of it. I think he's just a solid, he's the type of guy that any team would have. Plays all three outfield spots, hits well, has really good at bats, has a little bit of power. Yeah, I mean, last year was so weird. I would take it with a grain of salt because he was so good in 19. He's been good to start this year. If that continues, I would say 20 was just a blip on the radar. And yeah, I like him. He obviously has a strong arm. He had, however many assists last year. I like him in left. It seems like he can play center all right, which, the Pirates need a center fielder. So why not Reynolds?
Yeah, they certainly need a center fielder, especially after yesterday's moves with Alfred and Fowler being designated for assignment. I'm not sure he's good enough to be an everyday center fielder defensively unless he can hit at a really high level, and then he can maybe kind of make up for some of that difference there. But, man, they don't have a ton of other options, do they? I mean, this outfield, Reynolds playing center, Evans playing left, and Polanco is sort of underwhelming, but I can't come up with a better way to run them out there.
Yeah, I mean, they really don't have anybody else. You would have hoped that Alford could have stuck, or that, you could give Fowler enough chances that he would be a major league player. That obviously doesn't happen. They've got this kid from Oakland, Tom. Maybe you give him 300 plate appearances this year and he hits enough to stay. But other than that, I mean, I don't know. Do you call Jared Oliva up? I think he's hurt right now. But, you might as well play Phillip Evans out there just to get him in the lineup. Greg, you might as well just play Greg. His batting average is what it is. His strikeouts are what they are. But you might as well throw him out in right field and there's no better choices. And, they're not going to make the playoffs anyways. So you don't lose too much by playing Greg.
Okay, I mean, they're not going to make the playoffs, and I think that's a pretty fair assessment, but they're also 9-10 right now on April 22nd, which I don't think very many people thought was going to happen. They have not lost a series in 4 straight. I mean, this is not a terrible baseball team right now, despite a general lack of talent, and certainly when it comes to pitching. How is this happening?
I think this reminds me a lot of their first half 2 or 3 years ago when they decided, because it wasn't a great team then too, but they ended the first half with a 5-game sweep of the Brewers. They made the Chris Archer trade. They were going to go all in, and then they ended up missing the playoffs. And I think it's the same thing where that team had a bunch of role players and no real stars, despite Josh Bell playing like a star for that first half and then not so much afterwards. And they just got hot. You get, like right now, you have Frazier, Reynolds, Moran, and Gonzalez are all hot. 4 guys can carry your lineup, even if they're not stars. I think that happened a lot in 18. I think that was 18. To where they looked like a pretty good team in the first half, but we knew, they didn't have the starters. They didn't have the power, and they fell apart. And that's what I think we're seeing now is there are good players on this team. Like you said, there's not an abundance of talents, but there's good, useful major league players. And if you put enough of those guys on a team, even without, a star or two, they'll win games and they'll hang around. I never thought this year, a lot of people said this year they were going to lose 140 games or, 100 games. And I never saw this team as a 100-loss team. They're not going to pitch, the starters aren't going to pitch very well, but I think they'll hit enough. The bullpen's okay enough. This isn't. I never saw this year being the Disastros or even the Orioles as of late.
Well, yeah, the starting rotation now after Keller today, JT Brubaker, who looks solid, looks like the best pitcher they've got, will start the series with the Twins on Friday. And that's up in Minnesota at Target Field. And then Trevor Cahill gets the second game. And then I don't know, because they had the double header. So I would assume that Yajur and Anderson are going to stay in the rotation, but they'll need a spot starter, my guess, for Sunday afternoon. This is who is a Chris Stratton, I guess, would probably make a spot start. I don't know. Is there another option? This is not a a good pitching staff in any way, shape, or form, but it's also especially not a deep pitching staff when it only takes one doubleheader and one injury to really get to, oh no, what happens now?
Yeah. I think they're going to scratch and claw for a fifth starter because I don't think Brault's very close to coming back. Yahuri looked all right yesterday for some of it.
The curveball looked like it can play anyway.
Yeah. Anderson has been all right. He's got some swing and miss stuff that I wasn't expecting. But yeah, without Cool, I'm not sure. I don't know who's gonna go. I don't know. Is Dwayne Underwood stretched out? I guess.
I picked Stratton because I feel like he's the most stretched out of their bullpen guys.
Yeah.
But
that's I have no. In Brubaker, yeah. I mean, I somebody tweeted after his last start that if Mitch Keller was having these kind of starts, Pirates fans would be all over themselves. But yeah, I mean, he was their minor league pitcher of the year 2 years ago. So, he's was supposed to be pretty good, and he's been pretty good.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the guys that they have. I don't know who's stretched out and who's not. Guys that are in the minors, but maybe a guy like I don't know, Will Crow. I don't know.
I think Crow got added to the taxi squad today. So that's
yeah.
It's probably
I don't know if he's stretched out or not. Max Kranick, I believe, is a starter, but I don't know if he's who knows what they're doing at that alternate site. Who hasn't played in like 4 days anyway, so. I guess they're all rested. But we'll have more Pittsburgh post game to talk about the future series with the Twins, and then back home for 5, weirdly, 2 with the Royals and 3 with the Cardinals. So back to back against the AL Central. Pirates have been pretty solid in these interleague games for a couple of years now, which doesn't make any sense. But I guess it's just one of those things, and we'll get back to National League Baseball. The last thing I want to talk about before we went is, there was some consternation, I think, at the beginning of the year when Derek Shelton first rolled out his bullpen with a lead the first time, and it was Rich Rodriguez at the very back of it. And, I thought he was fine last year, not unhittably great or anything, but he's unhittably great this year. What a find he's been for this team who plucked him off waivers from Baltimore after they let him have a 14 ERA in 5 games. He's not giving up a run, and he's allowed 1 hit in 8 appearances this season. Is Rich Rod a dominant closer? And what does that get them? Can they trade him for something? I mean, or is it just like a funny thing that the Pirates have a good closer?
I don't know. I mean, you think back when they were good in 13, 14, 15, it was these relievers they picked up off the street and turned into all-stars.
And Jason Grilli was the same kind of guy.
Yeah. And even someone like Melanson, he wasn't a stud for Boston when they got him.
Yeah, he was kind of a throw-in as part of a bigger trade.
Yeah, and you think about those bullpens were a lot of late round draft picks or dudes they picked off waivers, and you think Rich Rod's the same kind of guy. And then a guy, Dwayne Underwood Jr., who I just mentioned, he's been very good to start the year. Sam Howard's been very good in 2 seasons, and I think it's good that they're getting back into this, because that's what I thought Huntington was always best at, was filling out a bullpen, without spending a whole lot of money. So I'm glad to see that they're doing that again. And yeah, I think the two, what you hear about most at the deadline teams needing is relievers and shortstops. And so I think it is, Ben Cherington is counting his lucky stars that Rich Rod and Eric Gonzalez are playing as good as they're playing right now.
Well, we'll see if they're able to get something in return for some of these guys, both hitters and pitchers, performing above the level they expected. And I think in the case of some of these guys, they have some contract flexibility. I believe Underwood they've got for a couple of years if they want him. So you never know. Maybe he'll be the next closer if they ship Rich Rod off to some greener pastures after his strong performance. Cody, anything else before we wrap things up here? Pirates 4-2 winners over the Tigers, win the series in Detroit 2-1, and are 9-10 on the season, heading to Minnesota.
No, just last thing is, as we're talking about closers, David Bednar, I love him right now. Great local story. His slider just looks awesome whenever he has it. I think that's another guy that's going to be a real good at back of the bullpen piece. That it was again kind of a throw-in with the Musgrove deal.
Yeah, he's doing very well. Before I let you go, talk to me about what's happening with West Virginia baseball. I know you cover Randy Mazey's squad, and tough weekend against Texas Tech, which is very, very good team. But what are they? How are they looking? I guess it's about the midway point of the season here. Maybe first third of the season.
Yeah. Well, they've definitely underperformed. They're under 500. Their starting pitching just isn't very good. They've got Jackson Wolf, who's their ace, but everybody else behind him just hasn't really performed, whether it's walks or just getting hit around a bunch. They finally are all healthy now, which feels like, they're starting to play better. Like you said, Tech is a tough team to go there and win a series. I think they were happy just to get the one game. And then, staying at Mon County Ballpark, Jed Jerko just announced as the new Black Bears manager, but not officially retiring from Major League Baseball, which I thought was a little bit odd.
Yeah, not too many people go from manager back to player, and he's clearly aged out of the prospect league at 32 there. So it's not like he can be a player manager, but, I guess the Pirates are only one more third baseman injury away from having to give him a call, right? I mean,
yeah.
If Todd Frazier doesn't work out, I mean, how much older is Todd Frazier? Like, Jerko's 32.
He had a career year last year.
And Frazier's 35. So, it's not like it's some sort of huge stretch to say that the Pirates might be better off with the manager down the road than their own guy that they just called up. So maybe we'll have to get a Twitter thread ready for Jed Jerko as opposed to my Todd Frazier Twitter thread today, which was good fun. Check that out if you're into inanities of Scottish heritage, uniform numbers, and Rutgers grads in Major League Baseball. So that's it for this episode of Pittsburgh Postgame. I do believe Matt is back again tonight. We have a little Bucks and Pucks doubleheader. Penguins have the Devils. And so I believe Matt will be back later tonight. So make sure to stick around for that. And we'll have draft talk with myself and Nick Faribaugh every weekday, the month of April, mic'd up in the mornings with Mike Vukovkin and Mike Osti. It's a busy time at Pittsburgh Sports Live. So make sure you click the subscribe button, hit the bell for notification, find out every time we've got a show. And learn all about the wonderful world of Pittsburgh sports. Thanks for joining us, Cody. You can check out Cody's work covering West Virginia, both baseball, basketball, football, rifle, cheerleading, stories about the guy with the beard and the gun. He does it all for West Virginia Sports Now and at Cody Nespor on Twitter. For everyone at Pittsburgh Sports Live and for Cody, I'm Alan Saunders. Thanks for watching Pittsburgh Postgame. We'll be back tonight with more, so stay tuned.